But today, this famous parade ground, with its yellow gravel, surrounded by statues of military figures and war memorials, and edged by the back wall of number 10 Downing Street's garden, is ready for the procession of the Queen's coffin.
And that tenor bell still tolling from Westminster Abbey, 96 times for every year of the Queen's life. Now, the procession is going to be moving from Horse Guards Parade, as Emma described, to the Mall close to Admiralty Arch, that great London landmark which leads into Trafalgar Square. And that's where Ken Bruce is for us today. Good morning, Ken.
Morning, Martha. Thank you. Yes, Admiralty Arch, commissioned by Edward VII in memory of Queen Victoria, but completed after his death in 1912. Been here 110 years. It stands as the kind of gateway between Trafalgar Square and the public part of ceremonial London, the Mall. 0.5 nautical miles in length from the arch to the Queen Victoria Memorial at Buckingham Palace. The procession will come up Horse Guards Road, which is directly in front of where I am at the moment. It will then wheel left and process along the Mall for that half mile. And at all points of that distance, those in the procession will be able to see ahead of them the facade of Buckingham Palace. Now, even at this late stage, preparations have been continuing this morning. A little earlier, I saw 3 army personnel out with pace sticks, these kind of dividers, walking sticks, which make the final measurements to ensure the procession is timed to perfection, as we're sure it will be. Here in the Mall, police officers in ceremonial dress, wearing white gloves and full medals, are lining the route facing the people who have arrived here in huge numbers. Some have camped for days, as we've heard, their tents now safely away, but all of them prepared for a memorable day.
And you'll be enjoying, Ken, I'm sure, hearing the mass pipe and drum band, the bagpipes playing there. Now, from outside Buckingham Palace, the procession made up of military from the evening, all over the streets around Westminster, bands, regiments marching. But this is not part of the procession.
It's not, Martha, and you asked me earlier about the scale of today's military ceremonial. Well, this is the first phase of it all. In many ways, it's the deployment phase. And clearly, it's essential to get this right, to have the right troops in the right place, in the right order of dress, with the right kit, ready to do the job, which in this case is provide the ceremonial for Her Majesty's funeral. And there's a considerable amount of time and effort that goes into it. And what people will be seeing and hearing for the most part is the deployment mostly taking place from what's called the forward mounting base at Wellington Barracks, which has been used and has been a hive of activity for most of the last 10 days. And from Wellington Barracks are deploying at the moment all the different contingents to take up their positions, either as streetliners or indeed, most prominently will be initially the Tri-Service Guard of Honour taking position in Parliament Square. But that's
streetliners, I mean, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? But they're the people who will be standing with their backs to the crowd.
Correct. Streetlining is the correct technical phrase. Within the army, it's called gutter sniping.
Gutter sniping, goodness me, that doesn't sound too respectful, does it? Thank you very much indeed, David. Now, so many people have come to London in these past 10 days. Everywhere you see people on buses, on the underground, clutching bunches of flowers which they've laid at the Palace and at Green Park. Andrea Cathode is there.
Martha, it feels here as if there is a dawning realisation in the crowd that after these extraordinary 10 days, where people have flocked to London to show both their grief and their gratitude, we're now about to witness the final act. Many here have gone to great lengths to do that. I met Lisa from New York, who queued up to see the Queen lying in state, and then stayed up all night once more to secure a spot today. Families from Leicester, from Bristol, camping out in Hyde Park, and still more who simply slept in fold-out chairs along the route. The funeral procession, as it wheels away from Buckingham Palace, will carry the coffin past Green Park here, where the crowd is 20 or 30 deep, the pavement is full, and the police have closed it to newcomers. There are Union flags, Australian flags, veterans sporting medals, children on picnic rugs, there's even some family dogs. Green Park, of course, has become the centre of the people's spontaneous tribute. Thousands have brought not just flowers, but handwritten and heartfelt letters to the Queen. One, signed simply Pat, said, "As a child, I remember the death of your father. I watched your coronation on the first TV we ever had. I can't believe you're gone." There are drawings of crimes and corgis, posters from primary schools and brinies, and tributes from across the globe. A card from Kenya praises your incredible influence on the world. There is one overarching sentiment, I think, and it's thank you for your unwavering service, for doing your duty right to the end. Well, the people that are here lining Green Park today say that it's not a duty to be here. In fact, it's an honour to bear witness and to bid a final farewell.
And interesting, as you say, Andrea, that message from Kenya, because there have been so many people from the Commonwealth coming to London and to Windsor, and there are going to be events going on around the Commonwealth and the world to mark the funeral of the Queen. Rachel Burden is at Canada Gate, just next to Buckingham Palace.
Yes, at the corner of Buckingham Palace and Constitution Hill, in front of the Canada Gates. One of the Dominion gates, which form a semicircle in front of the palace, a symbol of the Crown's influence around the globe, and a relationship that evolved so much in the 70 years of the Queen's reign, from an empire into a Commonwealth that she was so deeply committed to. The Canada Gates behind me, that black wrought iron and gold ornamentation, bearing images of fruit, wheat, and a seal, the two stone pillars which make up the West and South Africa Gate at the end of the Mall, and then on the far side the Australia Gate, which show a kangaroo and a ram. Countries from the Commonwealth will be represented in the procession later, including armed forces from Australia, New Zealand and Canada, many of whom have flown in for the occasion. And the Royal Canadian Mounted Police will be leading the procession, riding 4 horses that they themselves gifted to the Queen, a tradition that goes back 50 years. So the crowds packed into the viewing areas at the bottom of the Mall to my left, and they start again at Constitution Hill to my right. But directly in front of me, as I look down from our elevated position, in front of the barriers, I can see police lined up in their ceremonial gear. And the link to the Commonwealth is visible here too, because as well as representatives from all the forces in England and Wales, there are police representatives here as well from overseas territories. And I spoke to one earlier, Dorcia, from the Royal Cayman Islands. She's there in her white jacket, scarlet sash and scarlet trim down the side of her legs, and she spoke of the pride she felt at taking part in the event today, knowing that her family would also be watching from home. Each of these individuals playing their own role in this historic event, which it's expected will be watched by over 4 billion people all over the world.
Arrivals of the former Prime Ministers, Boris Johnson and his wife Carrie, walking in now, and of course he only said goodbye to the Queen as Prime Minister 2 days before her death.
Yes, he said farewell to her on the Tuesday, and on the Thursday came the announcement. We see him walking in, and behind him, that is David Cameron, whom of course Boris Johnson managed to bring down, and Theresa May as well, the Prime Minister who came between the two of them. And of course, that relationship between the Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister, and the Sovereign and the Queen has been highlighted over the last 10 days. The weekly audiences, so little has emerged from those audiences. Gossip and rumour about which Prime Minister the Queen may have favoured over which. Most of that gossip based on absolutely nothing, because they have been so quiet about it. But what they all say is how important those audiences are. These men and women are hugely busy, and yet for them that 20 minutes, half an hour with the Queen every week, pretty much without fail, is a time where they can open their hearts to someone who understands what they do.
David Cameron and his wife Samantha are already inside. The bell that you can hear tolling from time to time, those are the bells of the Abbey which are tolling for every year of the Queen's reign. And the three cars that have now drawn up outside, Sir John Major, his wife Norma, Sir Tony Blair, his wife Cherie, and Gordon Brown and his wife Sarah.
And no hint of politics, no hint of grandstanding, all of them, of course, dressed in black, all of them with a relationship now that goes back decades to the late Queen. All of them have paid their respects over these last 10 days, talking of what the Queen meant to them and means to them, all of them making their way in under that stone arch right now.
And among those already sitting in the Abbey, Sir Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ian Blackford, of the SNP, Chris Whitty, the chief medical officer who steered the country through the pandemic, cabinet ministers, the mayor of London, representing almost really the full political spectrum in this country. And then in a moment it will be the arrival of Liz Truss, the Prime Minister, who the Queen asked to form a government at Balmoral, the same day that Boris Johnson had that final audience and meeting.
Can there have been any more difficult introduction to the job than that which Liz Truss has had? A long leadership campaign where she was, of course, the favourite to win, perhaps made her think that she was ready and had a team ready. But within 2 days, she was outside Downing Street introducing the nation to the news that the Queen had gone. It's been a tremendously difficult time for her. She will read a lesson at this service.
And after this, we will shortly see the arrival of foreign royalty and then indeed in due course the royal family.
Let's hear more about the arrivals of the royal family, the different positions that they're taking up. And let's cross now to the Mall and to Clarence House, where we can hear from Nuala McGovern.
For the past couple of minutes, it feels like a lot of the people that are guarding Clarence House have just gone into formation. We have a number of horses that are to the left of me, of the Metropolitan Police that have lined up, others coming to join. You can probably hear that now. As I look ahead, I see 4 police outriders that have straddled their vehicles just in the past couple of minutes as well. I suppose expecting 4 members of the royal family to leave. I also see in the distance burgundy and black royal Rolls-Royce. It does have the royal standard atop it and no registration plates, so we know that that would be the royal car. There is people that are moving back and forth between Clarence House, and also you have St James's Palace, which is adjacent, and they are waiting. Let me take a look. It is 29 minutes past the hour. They are expected to leave in the next minute or so. What's interesting also with this flurry of activity is that you have 2 guardsmen that are standing stock still in their scarlet tunics. But here, the police outriders beginning to make their way out through those black wrought iron gates, their lights flashing, their dots of bright green fluorescent as they make their way in staggered formation. 1, 2, the third waiting until the 4th police outrider emerges from those gates. Behind it, we have the Rolls-Royce, which I just mentioned, with the royal standard. The cheers from the crowd that have waited for this moment. King Charles sitting on the right, waving to the crowd, raising a white gloved hand to acknowledge so many people that have come to wish him well, to mourn with him and his family. And the King is accompanied by the Prince of Wales and also in a following car the Duke of Sussex, departing Clarence House for the Palace of Westminster by way of the Mall, Horse Guards and Whitehall towards Admiralty Arch.
The maroon Rolls-Royce about to stop in front of the north door, the main entrance here, where just a few hundred yards further inside the hall, Her Majesty has been lying in state for the last 4 full days. I'm just overlooking New Palace Yard now, and I see the Duke of Sussex walking in, and the King and the new Prince of Wales, they're now entering the hall. And of course, when they go in, greeted by the Speaker, they will see the final preparations being made for the bearer party. The Queen's Company 1st Battalion Grenadier Guards, 8 of their number, ready to lift in the next few minutes the Queen's coffin from the catafalque. And of course, carrying it in procession from the hall here to the state gun carriage, which should be appearing just to my left in the next few minutes.
Well, right on time, just after the King and Prince William and also Prince Harry left, then the next cars began to emerge.
The Queen's coffin on the gun carriage, moving precisely. The Navy ratings, their backs ramrod straight as they haul the carriage ahead of them. And behind the carriage, the King and senior members of the royal family. Princess Anne to his left, Duke of Sussex to his left, and the Earl of Wessex to his left.
So on this day of the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, the cortege now leaves the cobbled stones of New Palace Yard and passes through Carriage Gate and into the full public gaze of all those here in Parliament Square. They turn to the left towards St. Margaret's Church, ahead of them the pale grey stone, and then they begin to move round to the right on the south side of Parliament Square. It is a remarkable and rarely witnessed sight, the Sovereign's coffin on the state gun carriage, being pulled not by horses, but by 142 Royal Navy ratings, serving sailors. What an honour it must be for them to be selected for this task. 8 abreast at the front. That's been witnessed only a handful of times in over a century. We have 142 pairs of Royal Navy boots and the massed pipes and drums heading towards the corner of Parliament Square and towards Westminster Abbey. What a sight, what a sound.
Slowly the coffin is borne into the abbey, inching forward, step by step. In front of the bearer party, the abbey choir and the clergy, the pursuivants and heralds in their distinctive tabards, richly embroidered front and back with the royal arms. And behind the coffin, the king steps toward the nave, up toward the east end, where the catafalque stands, in readiness for the coffin of the Queen.